to another episode of Tools, Talents, and Techniques. My name is Dustin Sutton, and today we have the privilege of having a conversation with Matthew Paschall. He's the National Program Director of DevelUP at Baker Tilly, and in a 3-year span, focusing on the crucial aspects of building a diverse and inclusive client base and workforce. Matthew, he's forged a very impactful program and partnerships both internally and externally, and he's really been amplifying the voices of underrepresented entrepreneurs and the communities they serve. So we're going to dive into a lot of what he's been doing, his background, what he's currently doing and where he's going. So I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I've been looking forward to having it. Without any further ado, here he is, Matt Paschall. Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey, Dustin, how are you? It's good to see you. Thank you so much for having me.
This has been a long time coming, and I'm so glad we get to have this conversation and share more about yourself and what you're doing. So if you would, could you just take a moment and introduce yourself and a little bit more about what you do?
Hey, sorry, you froze on me.
Oh, there we go. Well,
there you're back now. You're back now.
All right, let's do it. I just want you to introduce yourself and a little bit more about what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you noted, Matt Paschall, National Program Manager of Baker Tilly's DevelUP Initiative, have been with Baker Tilly for 4.5 years since I graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where I studied real estate. And the past 3.5 years, as you noted in the intro, have really been building this comprehensive, what I'll call a social impacted business development strategy grounded in how do we, Baker Tilly, a top 10 accounting and professional services firm, best support minority-owned businesses in the communities that they serve, and how can we be more intentional and thoughtful with not only how we show up for clients and prospective clients in this commercial real estate and economic development ecosystem overall, but then how does that inform how, as an organization, we think about talent attraction, talent development, recruiting, right? Ensuring that our team is reflective of the clients and the communities that they serve as well. And so it's definitely comprehensive, and it's definitely, small incremental system changes. But the past 3.5 years have exceeded my expectations in terms of the pace of growth for DevelUP. What started as 125 stakeholders in Milwaukee and an idea on a napkin has blossomed into what we anticipate will be over 400 stakeholders at our conference in April. And then more broadly, just a movement of people across industry that are committed to empowering the historically underrepresented and under-resourced and building an inclusive economy. So it's a very exciting time.
This is so phenomenal that you're doing all this, and congratulations again on your early success and your continued success. When you were in college, and we're going to go back further than that, but I just want to stay here for a minute. When you were in college, what was your idea of what you were going to be doing when you got into the air quotes here, the real world? What was your thought process?
So when I got to UW and I decided that I was going to study real estate, I was kind of seeking to find myself and find direction. I knew that I was passionate about social justice. I knew I wanted to help people. I knew that I wanted to do well by doing good, but I didn't know exactly what that looked like. And in studying real estate, in my early educational journey, I didn't know if the industry was right for me. I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me in classes. I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me reflected in staff, nor did I see a world outside of traditional commercial real estate, which I'm going to say is Class A, multifamily, office, the more sexy aspects of the industry. And so it was kind of a journey of me going through various internship experiences and informational interviews to better understand, okay, this world of commercial real estate really is so big. And based off of my passions and how I want to feel doing this work, where does that mean for where I should be? And that's how I stumbled into the world of community development finance, which was how I started my career at Baker Tilly. But I think if you had told me my freshman year of college that I was going to be doing something in the real estate realm, I wouldn't have necessarily believed you. But I knew that I was going to be working with people and supporting people and helping people accomplish their goals. And it was really just a matter of how I could use my gifts and my relationships and resources to do that.
So when you started at Baker Tilly, walk me through what that was like. The interview process. Did you have an internship there first? Like, what was your introduction to Baker Tilly?
So it's very serendipitous. So I remember this very vividly. I was at the library doing the whole second semester senior applying to job process. And I had just had an informational interview with a developer in DC, Black developer who had built and scaled their own affordable housing development company. And it was the moment that I had had this aha moment of, okay, community development finance is where I want to go. Let me start in this industry and see where it takes me. And I sit back down, I open LinkedIn, and there's Baker Tilly with a job posting for an affordable housing transactions analyst. And, I applied, had a screening call with the recruiter, and then went into the Baker Tilly office in Madison for the interview. And what I really remember from that interview was how passionate all the leaders I spoke with were about the work that we did, right? Any element of supporting clients, from site identification to securing financing to supporting them with the low-income housing tax credit process, my team loved what they did. And I walked out of that interview, one, feeling like I had done well and presented myself well, but two, feeling like it was going to be an amazing opportunity to work for a group of people that were so passionate about the work that they did, because that's not always common in corporate America when you work for a team. And so to have a group of leaders who were that excited and that passionate about not only doing the work at a local level, but really a national level was something that was very exciting to me.
Yeah. Do you feel like you knew that? Because again, you're going into this and you don't have a lot of career experience yet,
Right.
but you could feel at that moment that it was different, that they had something that wasn't normal?
Yes, I think I had watched, growing up, I had family members that were in corporate America. I had a lot of friends whose parents were in corporate America. And within that, I think you hear more of the horror stories than you necessarily do see your parents and people that living and working in an environment that gives them energy, that gives them joy, that excites them each day. And so, although I was new, I knew how I had felt in my past internship experiences, that it didn't light a fire in me the way that I wanted, that it was maybe industry aligned, but it wasn't lighting the fire of Matt. And I really felt like walking out of that interview, I knew, okay, I don't know how long I'm going to be here. I don't know where this company is going to take me. But what I do know is I want to work for leaders like this, that are this passionate, that are this motivated, that are this positive, that are this optimistic, and that are this energized about what they do, because that's going to make me want to work harder and do all that I can to ensure that my team is successful.
That's great to hear. When you are working there, and then how long until you came up with the idea or the concept for DevelUP?
I had been at the firm for about a year and a half, about 18 months.
Okay. Walk me through that process when this came to light, when this light
Yeah.
bulb went off.
Yes. So I was working with a partner, with our lead housing partner of the housing practice at Baker Tilly, on a client. And there were so many things that were coming up on the deal. There were so many exceptions being made. There were just so many out of the box accommodations that were being made for this sponsor that, it came down to access to capital, access to social capital, and access to, in our case, it was real estate professional services. And we're up late working one night, and I looked at him and I said, this project embodies the barriers to entry that underrepresented developers face. And we're seeing it in all these different elements of getting this project done. And while this project is going to get to the finish line, so many projects don't even get here. The developers never see this type of opportunity. And so, what role do we play in bridging the opportunity gap and empowering diverse developers to grow and scale, both in affordable housing, which is the firm's bread and butter, but also in commercial real estate more broadly? And so this is around the time that, you have the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd, right? So you're seeing increased conversations around race, around the racial wealth gap, around the disproportionate support for minority-owned businesses across industries. And I was able to channel the conversations that were happening at a national level into industry applicable conversations with my team, right? So how do we take conversations that are happening nationally where it's easy to get lost and really focus on what does this mean for our industry, right? What is the history of real estate and commercial lending in this country? How does this inform the work that we do, right? We're in community development finance. We're in an industry that in part is righting historic wrongs. And so how do we take that lens of understanding and apply it to our clients and the communities that they serve, but also some of the barriers that our clients are experiencing and the areas that we're being brought in to help offer support and capacity? how can we think more critically about what else we can do, what additional questions we can ask, how we can go further, not just because it's the right thing to do, but really based off our position in the industry and standing in the industry, we're obligated. It's a must for us to do this, to provide the value that we're saying we want to provide, but also to position our clients for long-term success, which when you're in professional services, I mean, that's what you want, right? You want to watch your clients grow and thrive. And so that was kind of the impetus for it and the aha moment. And it really took, when I always tell the story about this, it took time, right? So now we're in year 3. You go on LinkedIn, you're going to see the DevelUP speaker graphics everywhere, and you're going to see, something that, presents as a bit more sophisticated than where we were just 3 years ago, right? And before our first event in Milwaukee, we were doing a year's worth of work as a team talking about the school to prison pipeline, mass incarceration, the racial wealth gap, the opportunity gap, right? Reparations, all these different topics that then informed our team having a shared understanding as to why DevelUP was so important, why we had this unique opportunity as a team to change the landscape of our industry and the role that we played as a collective in doing that.
How many people are on the team when this idea came about and you're working late and you're saying, "Hey, this is everything." Like this shows all the all the layers of what is a challenge in our industry. How many people are in that room with not that moment, but how many people are involved in that part of the process?
So I would say in the infancy stages, it was really just me, my two coaches at the time, and then the lead partner. But once the programming started and we were having those conversations as a team, that was a team of 20, 25 people that were
Hmm.
engaging in this type of courageous dialogue and this willingness to be uncomfortable. And from that, the strategy grew into something that was not just, okay, this is Matt's to do or this is Matt's to own, but something that, no, we all play a role in ensuring that this business strategy is successful and how we think about clients, how we think about engaging clients, how we think about supporting.
Yeah, that courageous conversation, as you refer to it, is so important. That's one of those things where I'm again blown away by what you have done and continue to do. But it's like there's a lot of people that are complainers out
Yep.
there and that will say like, "Oh, there's a problem. I don't know, somebody else can fix it or do it or don't know how to." Really, I get that's where my questions lie are like that
Mhm.
magic of having something and pointing to there's something wrong here. Let's try this. I think I have an idea for a solution. We need to try and getting buy-in from other people to help push that forward. And it sounds like, from based on what I'm hearing, is you having that courageous conversation, but Baker Tilly and the leadership there was very important on helping you craft and put the things around it to amplify it.
Yes, absolutely. So I came to the organization with a background in having and facilitating these types of conversations,
Mhm.
right? From grew up in Washington, D.C., right? A hyper political city, just in the nature of growing up there, but through my, high school experience, through growing up in the house that I did and some of the stuff that I did as a student in high school, just hone that skill set of how do you have these conversations? How do you make people feel safe in these conversations and encourage people to speak to what's on their mind, right? Not worrying about as much whether it's accurate or not or correct, but just to share, because that's where we get caught up oftentimes is the unwillingness to share and even engage in the dialogue to begin with. And so that was kind of the mindset that gave me that level of confidence saying, okay, if I get the support from my leadership, I know I can do this because I've done it before. And I was very blessed to have two bosses that were incredibly supportive of me and my vision for this and were willing to say, we understand that there are going to be elements of this that may even make us uncomfortable, but we want to support you. We believe in this. We know that this is the right thing to do. And our team does need to be doing this. We do need to be leaning into this work in the ways that you're describing. And so let's figure out how you can bring it to reality, how we can help you bring it to reality.
So let's put a pin in that, and I want to talk about the steps of having the conference and doing those things. But you just brought up something about your upbringing and having those conversations, and you mentioned a lot of that. talk to me about your upbringing and what that was like. As far as, were you into sports? Were you into the community activities? What was that like?
Yeah, so grew up in Washington D.C. Went to a small um, liberal private school, K through 12. Played basketball, lacrosse, soccer in high school and in middle school growing up, but was in an academic environment from a very young age that was grounded in teaching you how to think and teaching
Mhm.
people how to and teaching its students how to think critically. And the founding of the school that I went to was that post Jim Crow was one of the first, if not the first, school in DC to integrate, right? And it was an academic environment that was fostered under the context of how do we create an inclusive learning environment for Black and Jewish students, two students that have been excluded in this kind of during this Jim Crow era. And so with that founding and with that context, I mean, from a very young age, just having open conversations in a classroom setting or in an assembly setting about current events. What is your opinion? How is your opinion being reached? Hearing complementary perspectives, opposing perspectives. And I really came to value that. And that was only further instilled from my parents, who were both critical thinkers. My mom had a 20 plus year career in corporate America, specifically as a chief diversity officer for multiple Fortune 500 companies. And so the conversations around those levels of corporate complexity and problem solving and relationship building and all those types of things were things that I, kind of took for granted because it was just what I grew up with and the type of conversations I had that were normal with my parents, that were normal with their friends. Um, but I would say that paired with growing up in a city like DC that really commands that to a certain extent, where that's just kind of the baseline level where you're growing up going to school with the sons and daughters of attorneys, the attorney generals, senators, congressmen, and women, right? It just kind of brings a different level of visibility to it from a national perspective, but also from a global perspective.
Yeah, you know what? And wow, I mean, knowing that and that background, you were able to really meet that moment with your full self. Would you say like, oh, I took for these things for granted, but and you get out of school and you get into the workforce and you're like, oh wait, this is for me. Like this is
Yeah.
what I do best. That's amazing. That makes so much more sense. That's why I love having these conversations, because you're like, oh, that's why it. Yeah, yeah, you're good. I love this. I love it. So then so let's go back to right now with the develop and that programming. So what were the first steps that you actually put something tangible together for what this is or what this could become?
Yes. So really, we were building, so the partner that leads our housing practice had a history of supporting diverse developers in the Milwaukee market. He understood DevelUP from the very beginning. He said, I've seen what you're talking about. In part, I built my practice through supporting these type of diverse sponsors in the Wisconsin market. I know what you're saying is needed, and I know that there's an opportunity to scale it. And so with our team and the services that we offer, I mean, we can be with a developer from project conceptualization all the way through the securing of financing and transitioning into construction and owner's rep up until lease up. So we have all those expertise in house. And because part of our capacity is helping developers secure debt and equity for their projects, the access to the capital and to the social capital, our team was already doing that just based off the nature of the work that we do. And so when it came to saying, okay, if we're targeting a demographic that's historically underserviced and supported in our industry, then we're going to have to go about engaging them a different way. We're going to have to go about reaching out to them a different way. And so that was where the idea for the conference came in, right? So, if you recall, after the murder of George Floyd, lots of financial institutions, investment banks, organizations were making money about how resources were going to be deployed with increased intentionality and thoughtfulness to minority owned businesses in general. But there was a specific focus on diverse real estate developers. And so in the infancy stages of building this, it was just doing that targeted cold email outreach. Hey, this is who I am. This is what our team does. And we have clients or prospective clients that would be interested in your capital, pre-development, LIHTC equity, debt. So kind of just starting some of those conversations and feeling out, okay, what markets are you focused on? What type of products are you looking for? What type of sponsors do you want to work with? And identifying where there was that synergy for our team to work with their team and identify ways to work together. And so that was just from a day-to-day perspective. The thought process with the conference was, we understand that the issue that we're discussing is a national issue. And a conference, a convening, grounded, and curating a space for diverse entrepreneurs to have a platform to speak to their trials, their tribulations, their successes, but also to network with a diverse array of industry professionals. That's what we felt like was missing. We didn't see a lot of that represented in the marketplace. And we felt like we had a unique opportunity to say, okay, we know that we are a top 10 accounting and professional services firm. We have relationships with a lot of the premier investing and lending institutions across the country that focus on commercial real estate, that if we call them, they'll answer the phone. And if we ask them to come to a conference, they'll come. Mm-hmm. So if we know that we can get those stakeholders in the room, how can we lean on some of our more local relationships to ensure that we have the diverse developers and asset managers that we're seeking to target in that room as well? And so it took a year of planning to say, okay, what market do we want to start in and why? We ended up identifying Milwaukee as that market because a lot of our team sits in Madison, and Milwaukee is one of the firm's stronghold markets. And that's where a lot of our, OG diverse developer clients are based out of. That's where they built their business, was in Milwaukee. And so it was really just this process to work through, how do you do the appropriate stakeholder engagement? How do you ensure that you have enough people in the room and that you're having the right types of conversations, right? So there's not only can you get everyone into a room, but then they have to see value in what you're doing. They have to see value in the panelists that you've put together, the content that you're going to cover, and the ways that you're working to keep them engaged. And so part of it was, here's why I think a conference is the best way to do that. This is the opportunity I think we have in the marketplace, because we're going to, once we do this well, word is going to spread, and this is going to continue to gain momentum. Also, I feel like another reason that it took the time that it did was it's just that not only external brand building and trust building, but internally, right? Here's what we've done, here's what we intend to do, and here's how the firm needs to be, or here's how our team needs to be in order to accomplish this goal, right? So going back to one of the things we talked about in the opening, not only are we talking about servicing a demographic that's been historically undersupported and underengaged by professional services, but we're talking about living authentically and doing what we say we're going to do, which means it's great to diversify your client base and to ensure that these developers or asset managers are getting the support that they need. But we also have to have the conversation about changing our hiring practices, changing our recruiting practices. And that takes time. I'm not expecting us to save the world in 1 year, but we have to be willing to make the multi-level commitment that is required to ensure that when we do this, it's received in the marketplace as authentic. Because where we were trying to differentiate ourselves was we didn't want to be we come out, we make this great proclamation, and 2 or 3 years in, it's gone. Right? Well, so go ahead.
Well, one of the things, because I didn't want to stop you. I wanted to add something, but I don't want to stop you. You're on a roll there. Because patience and knowing that you're not going to have all the answers off the bat.
Right.
It's going to take trial and error. It's going to take talent. It's going to take time. It's going to take all those things. But I think one of the main things, it has to start somewhere. And for you and your team to be able to take those conversations, take the initiative to do something, to put something forward, and for your leadership, yourself and the leadership and those around you to believe in it, to support it, and say, okay, this is what we're going to put in this, is what we're going to put behind this. And then this leads me to my next question is, how does that feedback work for you? So let's say you have some developers that are coming in and you're working with them, and there's still some pieces missing, or maybe they're not supported in this way or that way. How does your team strategize or systemize how you continue to grow and develop, pun intended, the process on how you're moving forward?
I think, kind of going back to your point, it's operating from a place of understanding that this is going to be an iterative process, and that we are not going to have all the answers at the time of which they may be posed. And whether it's, a developer may be in need of services that we cannot offer, we don't offer. So how do we leverage this ecosystem that we like to call it, that we're building, to make warm introductions, to make informed referrals, to say, okay, if you're looking for ABC and we can't provide it, we're not in a position to provide it, here's this Rolodex of industry contacts that want to work with you, that want to see you be successful externally, that we can lead you to. And then some of that is, okay, if we had to turn the client away this time for this element of support, is there an opportunity for us to add this as a service offering in the future? How do we think about this DevelUP ecosystem as one that's both, community building and, prospective business development, but also what I call service innovation, right? We're getting firsthand feedback and direct feedback around, these are opportunities for you all to grow. The stakeholder group that you're seeking to engage and support needs this, this, and this. You do 2 out of the 3. Is there a way for you to get to the 3rd? And I think that really after the second DevelUP in Atlanta, that's where some of the conversations became more rich in terms of where can we, as we continue to grow, think about service offering evolution to ensure that we're making the most of the people that want to engage us and want to work with us, and then building the appropriate strategic alliances so that we can ensure that whether it's us or, insert name of other firm, we've kind of provided this full service experience to clients to ensure that they're getting what they need. So I would say that's kind of the abbreviated answer, is that it's kind of been this, we're not going to be able to recreate the wheel in a year. We're 3 years in, but we have a lot of direct feedback from the surveys of our events, feedback that we're getting from lending partners that we work with, CDFIs that we work with, private equity firms that we work with, around these are the areas of need where we see there to be an opportunity. And is this something that we can work together to figure out? And so I think that's the other thing, as well as not only practicing patience, but then not feeling like when you're trying to solve an industry-wide problem, right, of ensuring that minority-owned companies and entrepreneurs have the resources that they need, you're not going to solve it alone, right? And so being willing to ask for help and willing to partner and willing to say, I'm stuck on this. We don't know. We haven't figured this out yet. Can we work together to figure out, as opposed to feeling like you have to be very close to the vest with some of these things because it's a business strategy that's only formally in its 3rd year and you don't want to give away your trade secrets. It's really more about, I know that collaboration breeds innovation. And so I want to ensure that whether it's us or another company, someone is able to give these entrepreneurs the support that they need.
Oh yeah, and there's something about, like, if you give it sunlight, if you do it right, I mean, it's going to have sunlight anyway. If you're doing it, be the best at it. So it doesn't matter if other people do it. Like, if you're doing it and you're the first one there and you're doing it right, then you shouldn't have to worry about that. At least not on all levels. Also something about the patience, about patience, not the patience. When I started to hear about, peeling back on DEI and things like that, and that is in the news and it's a real thing that's happening. But also, like you mentioned, it's an industry wide. It's a big issue that's been going on for a long time, and for people to expect that it'd be solved by some magic snap of the fingers and happen over a couple of years, like, it takes time. In this time right now, with some of the pushback in DI, are you seeing that in your day-to-day job and what you're doing, and if so, how are you pushing through that or evolving through that?
So a couple of ways. I think from the very beginning, the way that our marketing team put this together and the language that we used, we didn't call this a DEI initiative. That's not how we talked about it. If you go to the website, there's not going to be anything about DEI there.
Okay.
Because the way that we think about it is doing business with diverse businesses is great business, right? And it builds an economic ecosystem where everyone is positioned to thrive and be successful. And so we don't look at it as a DEI strategy as much as we do a business imperative to accomplish the firm's growth goals and to best support these businesses. It's the right thing to do, and it also generates meaningful returns. And so I think from that perspective, that language has been important because DEI has become so polarizing, right? And people don't, have mixed reviews to it or responses to it. in the wrong room, you could turn a group of people that actually may be interested in your work off. And so we've been trying to think about what is the language that we can use that's going to appeal to as many people as possible that are going to be mission aligned with the work that we're doing. Because we still are talking about equity. We're still talking about equitable access to capital. The conference and the webinars are still going to touch on the barriers that exist for minority-owned businesses and how we're working to solve them. And I think in terms of our brain trust of external organizations, I would say, most of them have doubled down on their commitments, right? When we're talking to them about, where DevelUP is now and how we anticipate it's going to grow, I think the organizations that we're working with are saying, depending upon our size, we may have to tailor some of our language, or we may have to have different talking points, but we're still going to deploy this money. This is a part of our organizational commitment. It's a priority for us to live true to these values and to what we've stated. And so even though the language is under attack, and some organizations are pulling back, I think right now more than ever, we and just the industry is seeing the organizations that are going to sustain their commitment to this work, even if they have to. It may look different, it may feel different, but I think what's important to us is ensuring that we're driving meaningful business returns for all the people that we're hoping to benefit. And I think that's the attack on the language, I think, is going to foster for the companies that want to continue to sit at the table and have those courageous conversations and figure out how to impact change. They're going to find a way, right? I feel like when we see that things like this happen, you either pull away because you may not want to hold your feet too close to the fire, or you go all in and you double down on your commitment. And I think that's what we've seen through the partners that we're working with. And I think with, what will be our largest conference coming up in Chicago and where we feel like it's going to take us from there, we too are doubling down on our commitment and embodying that as well.
So talk about this. So I want to give you an opportunity also to promote this conference directly. Could you tell me more about the date, the time, the things that are included in the conference?
Yes. So the conference is occurring on April 17th and 18th in Chicago, Illinois. On the 17th, we're having a sole day of Inflation Reduction Act programming. So we're specifically talking about what are the implications of the Inflation Reduction Act on commercial real estate, and what do MBE, WBE businesses and just diverse stakeholders in our industry need to know about that? So we're going to have a panel that's focused on the intersection of sustainability and design and affordable housing, and how the affordable housing industry is changing, both in terms of how products are getting financed, but also how products are being built. And then we're going to go into programming that talks about the opportunity that exists for MBE, WBE businesses to become green certified, and the opportunity that exists for them to grow their business, being all in on the energy economy, knowing that there are so many dollars that the public and private sector are going to have to allocate to accomplish what the laws want them to accomplish, that therein lies a huge opportunity for the businesses that are informed and equipped to take action to be poised for success. And then the last panel on that day is a panel that's going to talk about how projects in the energy economy are being financed. So all the different tools and tricks to get projects built across the country, whether it be housing, whether it be industrial, whether it be mixed use, commercial or retail, just having larger conversations around how different bodies that are going to be allocating funds, what they're looking for, and the best ways to access capital from them. And then on day 2, we're going to have everything from the state of the commercial real estate market to best practices for holistic community development to, as an MBE, WBE in real estate and professional services, how do you grow and scale your business? So we're going to hear from expertise across real estate development, construction, consulting, about how these businesses were able to grow and scale, not to a team of 2 or 3, but to teams of 20, right? And what does that take? Because I think, and going on a tangent, but one of the reasons that I'm super passionate about that topic in particular is because when you look at the number of diverse businesses that we've worked with or that I'm meeting, oftentimes they're still solopreneurs, or they're teams of 2 or 3. And when we're talking about generational wealth building, when we're talking about closing the racial wealth gap, when we're talking about sustained community impact and change, it's essential that those businesses are positioned to last generations and to be intergenerational companies that last 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And so the more that we can help foster conversations and facilitate conversations around the best practices on how to do that, and what's needed in the industry to position more minority-owned businesses to accomplish that. That's a huge win for us. And then there's going to be, we're going to have conversations on technology and how AI is changing real estate and construction, and what businesses need to know about how to implement AI or other relevant technologies to make them more effective and efficient. And then lastly, we're gonna be talking about the innovative ways that different organizations are providing capital to diverse sponsors. So we're going to hear from private equity professionals. We're going to hear from impact investors. We're going to hear from intermediaries between private equity and family office that deploy capital. We're going to hear from large lenders, really just about what are the different ways that they are approaching mitigating the barriers to capital that different diverse developers have, regardless of asset class. And the hope with that is to not just put the onus only on the large scale banks and CDFIs to make equitable capital, equitable access to capital a priority, but also to showcase how other leaders in the industry are doing it. And hopefully from that, kind of cross-pollinating of ideas, people can go back and think about other innovative ways to either deploy capital or receive capital.
Who are, if you could have like put it out there and say like these are the people that this helps most, the people that come to this conference or could be involved in the program, like who are you looking for specifically, if you could say that, to attend this conference? Who do you think this would make the biggest impact for?
Our bread and butter when we started was access to capital, social capital, and professional services for diverse developers. And at minimum, developers have a tremendous amount to benefit from being in this room, because the room that we're building is for it. We really say that it is for everyone, right? If you're committed to equity, you're committed to driving comprehensive community impact, then this is a room that you want to be in, because you're going to have the developers who are the builders, but you're also going to have the other professional services firms, the contractors, the engineers, the architects, the financiers. So I think I would love to just say that it would be diverse developers, but I think really, the conference is an outcome, but I think we've started a movement that's really bringing along, whether you're a broker, whether you're a lender, if you are a participant in the economic development and commercial real estate ecosystem, regardless of where you sit, this is a space for you, because this is a space where you're going to be able to do meaningful business development, where you're going to be able to learn, and where you're going to be able to drive, and hopefully develop meaningful strategies that you may be able to go back to your business or to your company and implement.
Yeah, and that's really what I was driving at. Like that, this is not just for developers. This is for anybody that's in that whole ecosystem chain. Is there, for let's say somebody, like aside from the conference, that's a standalone thing, is there a specific place for developers that want to learn more about this program and what Baker Tilly offers in general? Is there a specific place where they go? Should it just go right to the DevelUP website?
Yes. So they can go to the DevelUP website and they can submit an inquiry, and then I'll get an email and follow with them via email. And part of my job is to be that dot connector, so to better understand, based off what the prospective parties' needs are, who is the right person within the firm to bring to that conversation to ensure they're getting, an overview of what we can do to support them, but that they have access to the expertise that they need.
Yeah, that's great. Because one of the things that I think about a lot is that when I'm connecting dots for people, whether through BCREN or some other platform or whatever I'm working at that moment, uh, sometimes even people that have been in the industry for a long time and have been involved in development deals, sometimes they still don't know where to start. And it's like, well, they're coming up against the problem, and I found that sometimes the answers are not that complicated if you just connect them to the right person. And it sounds like, based on our conversations and what I'm saying and what you're doing, is that you're creating a real one-stop shop for people to move the needle and move the ball forward and whatever development projects that they're pursuing.
Yes.
It's not really a question. I'm just like really thinking about, like, you've done something really special that's solving a need, and that is a win-win. It's a win-win-win-win in a lot of different ways, because you're helping, your company, It's for the client, it's for the community, it's for the world. So what you're creating and what you're working on and what you've done is really solving more many needs. It's just phenomenal what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We're
Yeah.
doing our best.
Well, you know what? That's all you can do is your best. And one thing that I'm really impressed with is what I'm hearing and what I've seen from it's because it's never just one person. And as great of the work that you're doing, it sounds like you have a tremendous team around you and support that is putting their money where their mouth is, and they're putting their effort and their time, and that means so much because again, nobody does this alone. As phenomenal as any individual can be, like to have a team that you believe in, and that you said that you saw it from day one in the interview, like you saw those people and the energy that they had. That's remarkable, and that's something that needs to be fostered, and I think that's something that needs to be cheered. um, Collaborative efforts that are pushing things forward. So
Absolutely.
yeah, and that's why I was like, I knew a bit about this. That's why I was so excited to have you on the show to talk about it.
Yeah, no,
Such a
thank you
great
again for
experience.
having me.
Yeah. So in our last few minutes, is there anything else that you wanted to share about yourself? About I don't want to talk too much about the future and like where you see all this going, but happy to share if that's something you want to talk about. But I know what it's like to be focused and to be focused on right now and getting things done to the best of their ability now. But is there a long-term goal, like how you see this shaking out and where you want to take this?
Yes. So two answers. When I think about what DevelUP as a business could mean to our industry, I think that it could be the biz now of equitable economic development, right? So when you're talking about creating a platform that has thought leadership, that has content creation, that has localized convenings, elevating thought leadership and best practices, I think that that's what DevelUP is uniquely positioned to provide. Because I think that the evolution for DevelUP for us is, okay, what does this mean for service offering innovation? But we want to start a webinar series. I want to find different partners in different markets where I can do localized convenings, because attendees are coming to DevelUP and saying, I don't want to wait a year, Matt. I met 3 or 4 people in my region that I want to meet with again. And can you facilitate some of those meetings on a quarterly basis? So trying to figure out what role do we play in fostering that. One of the things that I'm super excited about is in May, right after DevelUP, we're going to host our second ever think tank, which is a project pitch competition, where we're going to have developers come in and pitch projects to 4 different panels, depending upon their project type, of industry professionals across, new market tax credits, affordable housing tax credits, capital formation and fundraising, community impact projects. So I'm excited to scale that and to figure out how we can work with the right partners externally to execute this multiple times per year, because I think that that's something that is so meaningful and drives such meaningful change for those that are able to participate, because of the relationships that they build, hopefully the financing that they're able to secure, whether upfront or down the road, and just to get at a very low cost, right? That type of practical project feedback that you may not get anywhere else. And I think that that's one of the things that I'm excited about as well. In the long term, the thing that I'm very passionate about that motivates me is I want to figure out how to get equity into the hands of diverse developers and asset managers. And I'm very passionate about trying to figure out how can I build something that enables me to not only have access to the capital to support these real estate development companies at the operational level or at the project level, but how can I ensure that I'm equipping them with access to the best project partners and technologies to help them be businesses of the future, and trying to figure out that oftentimes our industry can be so siloed that I think part of the role of DevelUP and part of what I feel like my role is in this industry is to help break down those barriers and those walls, to have people that are trying to solve similar problems in different industries come to the same table. And so I want to figure out how do we bridge the gap between real estate developers and implementing the technologies, whether it's during the construction process, or whether it's at the property management level. How are we equipping these developers to make decisions, not just that's going to benefit them in the growth of their business, but that's going to have generational impact on their tenants. in the communities that they're committed to serving, from a workforce development and economic opportunity perspective to a credit building, transition to home ownership perspective. I just think that there's so much. And so I'm excited about leveraging my network, my expertise, my relationships down the road to be able to go and raise a fund that enables me to deploy capital and the appropriate technologies and support to minority-owned businesses.
Well, Matt, you are doing some phenomenal work. I know I probably said it like 3 or 4 times already in this interview, but um, I really appreciate everything you're doing. I'm inspired by it. I'm impressed by it, and I know me as an individual want to do anything that I can to support you and your journey and what you're doing. And I know the other leadership at the BCREN feels similarly. And so, just congratulations and keep going. And I love the collaboration ideas and the thinking about how you solve all these challenges or approach these challenges holistically. I think the future is bright, and I appreciate you. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you, Dustin. Appreciate you, and I'm excited to continue to work together. Only the
Yeah, and
beginning.
so all of the conference and everything will be on the show notes. How to get in contact with Matt, with Baker Tilly, with DevelUP. Amazing stuff. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Dustin.